Hey, what's up guys? Sophia coming at you with another awesome Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and today's deck profile is going to be based around an archetype I did an archetype analysis for not too long ago, which I will be putting a link to at the end of this video if you guys want to go check this out. Also guys, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, leave me some comments. I take all your feedback into account with my decks, and without any further ado guys, let's get into today's profile on my pure Traptrix deck profile. So starting off guys, we have 3 copies of Traptrix Mantis. Traptrix Mantis, when normal summoned, allows us to search our deck for any Traptrix monster, as well as that once per turn as a quick effect. We can target one set spell or trap card we control, bounce it to our hand, and then set a spell or trap card from our hand. Seems a little iffy and weird-wordy, but once we get to Traptrix Dioneer, it's going to make perfect sense. So she's a really good card to open with, because she can search your deck for some of the main. Mostly for Dioneer, because then when you summon her, she can summon her back. Next up guys, we have 3 copies of Traptrix Murmello. When Murmello is normal summoned, we get to search our deck for any normal hold trap card. And then when Murmello is special summoned, we get to target one set spell trap card our opponent controls, destroy it. Works really well. So many ways to summon out Murmello in this deck, special summon wise, and normal summon search the hold trap is pretty good as well. One thing I want to mention also about all these Traptrix monsters is they are all unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. So I'm only going to say that once because they all have it. And all their attack and defense stats do add up to 2800, which is another really cool thing about the archetype. We've got 3 copies of Traptrix Dioneer. When she is normal summoned, we target a Traptrix monster in our graveyard and special summon it in defense, so that's basically a free Rafflesia. As well as that, if she herself is special summoned, we can target a normal hold trap card in our graveyard and set it, but if we don't use it by the end of the next turn, it's banished. That's where Mantis actually comes in, because we can bounce that set spell or trap to our hand and then reset it, because it counts as a new card, and then of course it skips the banish effect. Really, really good. We have 2 copies of Traptrix Nepenthes, or Nepenthes, however you pronounce it. So as long as she's face up on the field, if you activate a whole normal trap card, you can add or special summon a Traptrix monster from your deck. You cannot accept herself, and you can only use this effect once per turn. She does have 2000 defense, so she's a bit hard to get out on the field in defense mode, obviously, because you got to normal her. But you can always back to the front her, or you can learn Fire Blossom her. Lots of easy ways to get her out, and she does give you a lot of plus. You got to run 2 copies of her. Our last Traptrix monster we play is 1 copy of Atrax. Thinking of bumping Atrax up to 2 maybe, but she doesn't have any normal or special summon effects. Basically, while she's on the field, you can activate whole normal trap cards from your hand, as well as that she protects all your normal trap cards from being negated. So that's not just limited to whole traps. So she also has the highest attack of all the monsters. So 2 copies of Learn Fire Blossom, because tribute it, special summon a plant. Half the archetype is plant. Use this to summon mostly Nepenthes from your deck, so it gets her in defense mode nice and easy, so you don't have to wait for your opponent to swing into her as well while she's face down. As well as that, it can also summon Dioneer if you really need that set of the trap. Pretty good. You can use it also to go into itself and then something else, but I like not having to waste them. Same reason with Toon Table in Pure Toons. 1 copy of Ash, 1 copy of Ogre. Only have 1 copy of each. They still fit the theme of pure traps basically, but yeah, pretty good. We do have to play 2 spells in the deck, but because we're playing a mass set deck, 2 copies of Card Demise is perfectly good for us. If you don't have Demise, you can play Duality. I was playing Duality for a while. I feel like Demise works a lot better, because you can just set a bunch and then draw. Pretty straightforward. And if you're milling Traptrix to grave, it's perfectly fine, because there's so many ways to bring them back, even with just traps and the archetype itself. Now guys, we're moving on to the trap cards, and this is probably what you are here for. Which holes do I play? Starting off, 1 copy of Treacherous. It's the only trap hole I run that doesn't specifically require a monster to be summoned in order to activate. It targets 2 monsters on the field and destroys them. It can be searched by Murmello, which is a really good opening play if you're going first. So Murmello, search for this, set this, target your Murmello and one of their monsters. Your Murmello won't die, obviously, because he's unaffected by hold traps. And then, of course, it's pretty good. The only downside is you can't use it if you've got a trap in your grave. So it can brick you later on in the game, but very early on it's definitely worth main decking this card. 2 copies of Bottomless, mostly because it's Bottomless. Why don't I play 3? And then I feel like I want to run other cards over 3 Bottomless. Bottomless is still very limiting, believe it or not. It does require the monster to have more than 1500 attack. And I've run into a lot of situations where I've had Bottomless ready to go, and the monster they've summoned has had less than 1500 attack. But you can run 3 if you want. You probably want to side a 3rd one, but I still like maining 2. We have 2 copies of Floodgate Trap Hole. Again, similar reasons. Floodgate is still really good. Can't hit Link monsters, but can hit basically any other type of monster in the game. and can hit a bunch of monsters if they summon a bunch of them, puts them in the face down defense, and of course if you put their monsters in the face down defense, they can't link summon, they can't Xyz summon, they can't synchro, they contribute, and they confuse. That's pretty much all they can do with them, so running 2 copies is good. You can always like side it out if you need to for something else later on. 2 copies of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. And then again, another situational card, basically a mini Solemn Strike in a way. If an opponent's monster activates an effect the turn it was special summoned, you can negate destroy. Very limited, but I still like running it at 2. Again, a potential side target. But a lot of monsters, you special summon them these days to do an effect. So it's still, I feel it's a lot more relevant today than it used to be. So 2 copies of that. 1 copy of Time Space, again, not super relevant, but can shut the opponent down quite a lot if they're bringing out a big beefy monster from their extra deck that's going to like completely continue their players. You can just go, nope, you go back to the deck, you go back to the hand, which basically puts back in the extra deck, and you can, like, it may throw your opponent off a little bit, costs you a K, but you can do it for as many monsters as they summon in one summoning. So really good against pendulum decks, because if they summon a bunch from their hand, you shuffle them, put them all back in the deck. Really, really good card. And finally, 1 copy of Break Off, which is something you can actually abuse, which is pretty funny. Because basically, whenever a link monster is link summoned, you can destroy all monsters on the field that aren't linked, because all your Traptrix are unaffected by Hole Traps. If you've got a bunch on the field, you go into Mrs. Radiant. So long as you're pointing to Mrs. Radiant with at least 1 Traptrix, your Mrs. Radiant's fine. You can wipe your opponent's board if they don't have a all their monsters aren't linked. So really, really handy. Again, potential side out if your opponent's not playing linked monsters. But it's still pretty mean to pull off that combo. Moving on to the rest of our traps now, we've got 2 copies of Back to the Front. Basically, special summon the monster in defense. It's a trap, so we can do it in our opponent's turn. And when we special summon Momella, we can get that cheeky MST. So if they play a cheeky field spell or a continuous spell we need to get rid of really, really quickly, we can chain Back to the Front, bring back Momella and MST it before the effect goes off. Pretty strong right there. 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster, because it's our Twin Twister of the deck. Both of these, of course, are normal. Both this and Back to the Front are normal traps, so if we've got Atrax out, they can't actually negate these, which is really handy as well. We can't get the battle phase turn we use it, but we're going to use it in our opponent's turn most of the time, which is why it's really good. 1 copy of Torrential, because it's got the meme play with Rafflesia. So Rafflesia basically protects all our Traptrix monsters from battle or card effect, and if she has a overlay unit, she's unaffected by trap effects. So, yeah, you summon her, you activate Torrential, you lose nothing, they lose everything. Pretty meme plays right there, so it's why I like running it at 1. Of course, Torrential is also such a really good card. 2 copies of Naturia's Sacred Tree, basically one of the best floated cards we have for the deck. Continuous Trap, tribute a level 4 Earth Plant, or a level 4 Earth Insect, summon the other one from the deck. So tribute a plant, summon an insect, tribute an insect, summon a plant. Works really well for this deck, because they're all Earth Plants and Insects, level 4. Now moving on to some Floodgates. We have 1 copy of Imperial Order and 2 copies of Anti-Spell. Because we're playing basically pure traps, we're going to try and lock down the opponent as much as possible. Be careful with Imperial Order. Apparently it did get errated to you lose life points in both players' standby phases, which is a bit annoying. And of course they can always MST or Cosmic Cyclone the Anti-Spell Fragrance, so you've got to be careful. But still can shut the opponent down quite a lot if they open up a bunch of spells and they don't open with MST, Twin Twister, or Cyclones, which is pretty cool. And finally, guys, 2 copies of Strike, 1 copy of Warning, and 1 copy of Judgment. Alright, guys, that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck now, guys. We have 2 copies of Mrs. Radiant, because it's the Earth Link monster, so basically any 2 Traptrix monsters makes it. Not really going to go into it too often, because you're going to be using Rafflesia. But if Rafflesia does run out of overlay units, you can just use her and any other Traptrix, because she's Earth, which is one of the things that makes Link monsters kind of cool. As well as that, if it's destroyed by a card effect, you get to add an Earth monster from your grave to your hands. So you either add itself or you add any of your Traptrix, which is pretty cool. 2 copies of Rafflesia. She is the boss monster. A lot of people are out there thinking that she's better than the entire archetype and thus the archetype won't get support. I don't agree with that. I agree she's a perfectly good boss monster for this archetype. She basically she protects all your Traptrix monsters from battle or card effect apart from herself. As long as she has an overlay unit, she's unaffected by trap effects. So they can't bottomless her, they can't Torrential Tribute her. I mean, you can do the meme play with Torrential Tribute as well. And she lets you mill your trap hole. So basically, once per turn in either player's turn, you can detach one from her, mill a trap hole from your deck. It has to be normal. That meets its activation conditions, and her effect becomes that. So she mills you your trap holes as well. So when you special summon Dioneer, you can just set those trap holes as well. So really, really good card to play. You don't need to play 2 because you're very rarely going to go into 2. You'll probably go into 1, something down, leave it with an overlay unit, go into Mrs. Radiant, then make a second one. One copy of Malevolent Sin, because it's basically the only spider you can easily get away with playing in this deck, and of course Atrax is based on the Thunderweb spider, so I thought it'd be cool to play at least one spider in the deck. It has an ability that once per turn, it's only on your turn unfortunately, not either player's turn, so it's not as good. You can target one card your opponent controls, one monster your opponent controls, banish it until their next standby phase, and if it attacks, it gains 300 attack and 3 ranks. So if you pull it off twice, you can go into the bigger spiders. I've got one copy of Castell for some shuffling. One copy of Cowboy for that 800 ping, as well as that it is an Earth, so you can go into Mrs. Radiant with it. Babushka as well for some stall plays, and it works really well with this deck, because this deck is pretty much a stall deck. If they're like, most of their monsters are unaffected by holes and shit, you can just, you know, set this and then do some crazy shenanigans. The Utopia package with Prime, because we need to get that power if we really need to beat over something. Really good against if they go into like a Crystal Wing, for example. And yeah, they do it before they go first when they first turn Crystal Wing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and make a Utopia. If you can make a Utopia Lightning, then that's great. You beat the Crystal Wing, basically. There aren't too many outs to Crystal Wing in this deck other than that. We've got Dark Rebellion, because, you know, more memes. Ragnar Zero, meme card. If the attack points of a monster changes, you can detach one in either player's turn, destroy it, and if you do, draw a card. And then, of course, Silent on the Arc and Tornado Dragon for more memes, and Tornado Dragon for the extra MST. You guys got to be careful with these monsters that aren't Earth, because they can brick really easily. The opponent can take advantage of that, and you won't be able to use extra deck monsters. Because we do only play one Link monster, which is Mrs. Radiant, but that's a lot of problems that these older decks actually do have. But anyway, guys, that is it for the deck profile. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to check out my archetype analysis on the Traptrix and every single trap hole up to Flames of Destruction, which I'll have a link for in the video, which you can see probably right now. Other than that, please feel free to check out some of my other videos. Leave some comments below. Until then, guys, I will catch you for my next video.